Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today is March 18, 2022. We want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast, I'm Probably Wrong About Everything, for hosting us. Today, it's an honor and a pleasure to be here with Anna Kipervaser. Is that the right way?
That is.
Anna, where are you calling in from?
I'm calling from Durham, North Carolina.
How cool is that? The first question's, what is the best thing for a human being?
That's a really amazing question. The best thing for a human being is inspiration.
Oh, what a great answer. I rarely get that. What's your favorite form of information, how it comes into you?
Experience.
Wow. Now we call that direct experience sometimes, or uh like eye contact, verbal exchange. Just suss out a little, what do you mean by experience?
So the question was, how do I prefer, what's the best way for information to come to me? How would I
Yeah,
prefer to absorb it?
yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on what kind of information, but I prefer to learn through empirical experience, right? So if I'm going to learn how to do something, of course I can read about it. Of course I can watch videos about it. I can talk to people about it. But it's important for me to do it, and then I learn what it is. And if I want to learn about a place or about a person, uh, it's important for me to experience it.
Yeah, that's a good explanation. What's empirical mean?
Uh, Lived.
Lived. Good. Um, why do you think humans collect or gather information?
I've been thinking about this question a lot lately. Um, so most of my work deals with not my own history and not my own family. And recently, I've had this idea to work on a project that deals with my own family history and my grandparents. Um, and specifically about objects that were either created by my paternal grandmother and collected by other objects that are in the similar vein, collected by my maternal grandparents. And my paternal grandmother is no longer living, but my maternal grandparents are both alive and they're in their 90s. And they have collected a lot of things. And they have been, for the last year, every time I see them, they live in Chicago. And every time I visit, they're like, Anna, this collection of X is going to you. This collection of Y is going to you. And I'm always like, no, 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 not now. No, no. Like, you guys aren't dying anyway. Stop. And so, yeah, before I even came to the conclusion that I have to make this project, obviously it came from those conversations, but those conversations made me think about, like, I am collecting objects, I am collecting information, I am interested in learning things, and I'm interested in becoming something bigger than I am. But in the end, and what is the end, right? Maybe in the end, when I'm no longer interested in some subject matter, I no longer need these objects and no longer need this knowledge. Or maybe in the end, when I'm dead, what happens to all that stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, really, really well put. And we're going to cover a lot of what you delve, dove into deep end diving. I appreciate it. Is this need or want for humans to collect information more innate or more invented?
Mm. You know, I'm going to say I don't know, but I'm going to expand on that. Um, there was a time, so when I went to art school for my undergrad and I studied painting, I studied everything, but painting was my emphasis. And I had a lot of things and a lot of information, a lot of knowledge, a lot of content. And I mean, I guess right now in this conversation, I'm equating information with objects. But I'm also thinking about weight and how we travel through the world and how much we have. I mean, in your background and in my background, we can see that we have things. But there was a time after I had all of these objects, several years after college, that I was like, "Am I allowed to swear here?"
Yes.
Okay, cool. And I was like, "Fuck it. Fuck." And I was like, "I'm gonna get rid of everything." And I kept paintings that I made, some of them I gave away, some of them I sold sitting on the street, like literally on the street. People would come up and be like, "What are you doing?" And I look like a busker, but I have all these paintings. And I'm like, $5, $1, whatever, $50.
Wow, that's cool.
Just letting go. And so I think this process of cleansing was really like it's a great ritual to go through, but it was also really liberating for me.
Yeah.
And then I put the rest of the paintings in storage and I didn't have any more things other than what I could carry on my back. Now, what, 15 years later, it's, more than it's ever been, and I don't know, and, like, how many of those things do I access every day? How many of the things that I've learned do I access every day? Do I need them? What do I do with them? Like, sometimes I teach and I have to access some of the knowledge that I do not access every day in order to transmit it to others. But even then, there's so much that's amassed. And what is this knowledge? What is this information? Yeah.
Oh, it's great. No, it's one of my favorite answers ever because I encourage people to feel free to say, I don't know. But and see, what I do is I'm sort of psychoanalyzing all the questions as you know, as I go through this script, I like to just review them with the person. But no one goes, I don't know, but I'll expand on that. They usually, because people feel if they don't know, oh, they're sorry, I don't know, or, you know, um, I like even when they go, I refuse to answer that. Because this is Rebecca Solnit says so. Just because I'm asked a question doesn't mean I have to answer it. You know.
Fact. Fact.
So, do thoughts create emotions?
Hmm. Also a great question. Man, Jerry, you're doing amazing stuff to my brain. I love it. And like, does my brain exist because of the thoughts that are in there? And are the thoughts in there because of the information I've amassed? It's really great stuff here. I would love to think that emotion and thought are separate. I don't know if that's true, but I can think one thing and feel a totally different thing. I
Really? Yeah.
sorry,
No,
what were
it's
you
amazing because you see a lot of people go, well, both, blah, blah. My favorite was the guy goes, emotions create emotions, but we invented the words thought and the words emotion. So, but you can't separate it really,
yeah.
but it is beautiful how you handled it. And we're going to get deeper unless you want to add a little more. Is thinking more innate or more invented?
Huh. To human beings?
Yeah.
Man, human beings are fucked. I really I really like we are also animals, right? And
Yes.
so I mean, maybe emotion and thought are the same because that's the part of us that shouldn't exist, I think. That's the stuff that gets in the way. If we were animals the way that we're supposed to be animals, unfortunately, we're not quadrupeds. That would also make our lives so much better. Our backs would be healthier, all of our organs too. But if we were able to exist and function based on instinct, I rely on instinct a lot in my work. I rely on my intuition. And that comes from a totally different place than thought, totally different place than emotion. But I can feel my intuition. I cannot feel my thoughts. I have to actively think my thoughts. Whereas the intuition maybe comes from practice, but or like the regularity of it comes from practice, but originates on its own, which maybe emotion originates on its own too. But thought,
Yeah.
I have to actually think. And I have to actually tell my brain to shut up sometimes because passive thoughts are happening, right?
But this was really beautiful because I sort of encourage people in all my meetings. I say, go with your hunch, your impulse, your emotion more than your linear thinking. You're like, go. So if I ask you a questions like neuroscientists, they go, well, I'm not a neuroscientist or I'm not an anthropologist. I go, that's all right. I'm just saying, go with your hunch. What's your guess? So
Yeah.
you already laid out what I usually say to the person I'm interviewing. You go, I do that.
Yeah.
And so fill in the blank. I don't know what I think until I.
Huh. I have to say it myself. I don't know what I think until it happens. I don't know if it's until it happens.
It happens. That is, see, again, you're changing. Just because I offer the wording on the question one way doesn't mean you can't change it. So no
Cool.
one's ever changed it. That's
Oh,
cool.
cool.
But I have to go back to the other one I forgot to say. When you were talking, it really evokes something I'd say in my mantra is like Bridget Bardot says, when I make love, I don't think. And it's I always go, good luck, because you're doing like a most sensual thing a human could possibly do, and your brain's going tick, 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 and it's like, would you shut up? It is. I think it's a high aspiration on her, but just for her to say it was a beautiful thing to imagine.
But Jerry, when you were, I don't know when you lost your virginity, but when you lost your virginity, and maybe a few times after that, when you made love, were you thinking?
Yeah, that's a great question. Guess what? Yeah, you mean like after the first few, you weren't thinking. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you were
During,
more
during.
innocent. Yeah.
Yeah, you were just experiencing it, right? And then afterwards, you're like, I'm supposed to feel this. It wasn't like that. This person smells like that, like all
This
these.
is really, really important because do you know the question that Chick Strand would ask her film students?
Tell me, I love Chick.
Oh my God, it blows my mind. She'd come out and she'd go, okay, let's go around the room and everybody talk about when they lost their virginity, their first sexual experience. So when I go to Ann Arbor do a workshop, I won't do that because nowadays they'll like shoot you or something. But I go, are you willing? No, yeah. If I asked you that, would you be willing to describe it? She said, describe it. So all I want to know is a yes or a no, and how many people. But in Ann Arbor this year, I'm going to go, are you willing to describe when you lost your virginity? Say yes or no. 1, 2, 3. And then everybody yells, and it blends into just one. Wah. But
Yeah,
if it all blended into a yes, wouldn't that be amazing?
awesome. What do you normally get? What's the ratio normally?
Oh, I haven't done it in so many years, but yeah, it's usually half. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can humans think without language?
I'm gonna be funny and I'm gonna say I don't think so. Um, I, and I'm going to say the opposite. There was a long time, and maybe it's because of the various things I was into when I was a kid. Um, but there was a long time where I did not think with language. I thought visually, and I did not comprehend the world in language, and not just like I learn visually, not that bullshit. Well, that's also not bullshit, but that's not what I'm referring to here.
Yeah.
And I I I would like more touch, more vision, more feel, more sense. Maybe it's just senses, maybe it's not just vision. But then I think then I started reading a lot. And then I became very boring and I started to think in words. And I hate it.
Sorry to laugh. You know
No,
what I have a word. This woman who lives in Ann Arbor who worked with McLuhan, Norman Mailer, she turned them on to Gaia theory, to feminism. And she was really respected by him. She invented a word. It's called splitteracy. And the S is a dollar sign. So as soon as we learn printed word, we split our brains in the left and right hemispheres.
so annoying.
Okay, if no, Chomsky says language is not just words. It's culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. Anna, what do you do when language doesn't work, when language breaks down?
For me, language breaks down all the time, and it's really, really frustrating. And I'm from Ukraine, and right now, you'll understand why it's very complicated what I'm about to say. But I grew up there during the Soviet Union, and so my mother language is actually Russian, and
Yeah,
it's always been complicated, but it's super complicated now.
yeah,
And so my mother language is Russian. And then I learned English as like an 8-year-old. And in between, I also learned Italian. And then later, and also when I was a kid, I went to Polish school back in Ukraine. We weren't allowed to speak Ukrainian, but we were allowed to go to Polish school. And so, and I lived on the border of Poland in a city called Lviv that everybody knows about now. But I learned languages very easily, and I started learning Arabic later in life. And for me, languages they come, and they're great and they're interesting, but they're also just symbols and they're ways to communicate. But when I try to express myself and when I'm trying to debate something with somebody, I often don't have words or try to express how I feel about something or a more complex idea. I don't have the language for it. I am, people are like, oh, well, you've been in the academy and you also went to art school and to grad school and then you taught in universities and maybe you will again. And you're part of the academy. So you're an intellectual. And it's like, no, God, no, I'm not. And maybe it's something that would be very useful and good for me. And maybe I'd even enjoy it, but I'm not an intellectual. I function from a totally different place. So language breaks down for me every day, all the time. It's frustrating because I can't express myself. And sometimes I don't even understand what is happening around me.
but what do you do? That was a really great answer. But what do you do when it breaks down? I know you're saying it happens. What do you do? Do you have a strategy or a
I try and try and I just get frustrated. I mean, I think I think the answer was that I get frustrated, but,
okay?
but I try and I
Yeah,
just get frustrated.
I would say show them your water film. If language breaks down, say, "Hey, look at this." Like it's like kids. Why do kids? Because water is one of the most intriguing things for filmmakers of all time and just visual. But why do kids stamp their foot in a mud puddle? Like, what is this about water in
Yeah.
that? Like, it's some power they have or something over water. And, how you can see the sky and water, even though you're looking at the ground.
Yeah. And also animals do that when they're running and or even when they're not running, when they want to play. They just jump into the puddle and they play.
That's right.
Mm.
So, your observations of humans, I know it's both and it depends, but are we more feeling beings or more thinking beings?
If this was a survey that I was taking online and I had to choose somewhat agree or extremely agree, somewhat agree,
Yeah.
neutral, and so on, I would lean towards feelings. But I don't know if I'm talking about, like, I don't know if I'd be in a good mood when I would say that, if I
Yeah.
was optimistic when I would say that, if I was talking about myself only,
Yeah.
or if it was like a hopeful thought. But
Yeah.
I want to believe that we have the capacity to function from a different place than
Yeah. No, you really answer well. 80% of people go, "Are we more feeling or thinking beings?" They go, "I think we're more feeling beings." They literally and then they catch themselves, you know.
That's awesome.
My one friend counters it. He goes, "I feel we're more thinking beings."
Oh, that's so cute. Oh,
Two Alan Turing questions from 1950. Is thinking a function of the soul?
hell no.
I love your certainty.
Thanks.
The second one is, can machines think?
Oh, fuck yeah, that's a great fuck yeah. And that maybe that was my answer too, but that was also my exclamation about the quality of the question. Can machines think? They are not capable of independent thought, but they are capable of strategic thought.
Yeah.
But maybe soon they will be capable of independent thought. So
Yeah.
far, it's only within parameters.
You're really articulate, Anna, and I appreciate how you get what we're doing here. So the next one is, I really appreciate it. Do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
Man, you're really touching on things that I've been dealing with lately, man. I really, this is great. I don't need a therapist. I just need Jerry Fialka. Um, yeah, I most of my life I've been pursuing meaning, and I have been taking stock lately, and maybe I'm thinking too much, but that was meant to be funny. But been taking stock and realizing that I've been profoundly unhappy for most of my life, and I've been pursuing meaning. So I don't know how to pursue happiness. So maybe at 40 years old, I've got to figure that out.
Well, you know where I got is from Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, and he basically says meaning lasts and happiness doesn't.
Mm.
So, it's such a fine line and it crosses over. Does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? So is consciousness there bubbling away and we're detecting it, or are we actually creating it?
But are we separate from the brain? This
Well,
is
that's the funny thing is I learned the wording on that question. I could go, does the brain, the mind, the human more detect or create consciousness? So as soon as you say, yeah, it's a hard thing for me to figure out which word to say at the
yeah.
beginning. Or I could say, do we more detect consciousness or create it?
Hmm.
So then the person can put into the context. Because again, just to be clear, you put all the questions into the context you want.
Yeah,
I don't like, yeah,
for sure. And also based on my own personal background and
yeah,
current experience and current mood
yeah.
and whatever other mediation is happening. Um, and what I ate for dinner. Uh, so I don't know, the also for a lot of my life, I've believed that there's a collective unconscious that we
Yeah,
all tap into
yeah,
and that we're all part of. Not that we tap into it, not that we can tap into it, but that we are all part of it and that
yeah,
everything that's happening is all related and constant. And I think that when I am supremely connected to that belief and to that sense, that is when I can be the closest, or when I have been the closest to happiness.
yeah,
So, do I feel that we humans, that there's consciousness there, and and we just exist? And I think so, yeah. But I think, when we're kids, it's there, but we aren't attributing all of the layers of learned experience and rules and whatever the hell else we've been taught, right?
yeah,
And so we can exist freely. But as we age, then we have to create a lot more. So maybe it's
yeah.
yeah.
It's sort of flow. It's hard because that's like, do other living, like everything is living, trees, rocks, do they have the same consciousness? Well, it could be because you can go up and feel a tree or whatever. So
I think
what's oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I think they do. I think we're
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
same. Yeah.
yeah. What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Oh, speed of light for sure.
Audre Lorde says you can't dismantle the master's house, using the master's tools. Yvonne Rayner responded, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest, or it doesn't have to be new, what tool do you gravitate towards?
Huh. Okay, I'm going to ask for clarification because
Yeah.
I want to know what direction you want me to go in.
Yeah.
Do you want physical object tool?
Nope, it does not have to be a physical, tangible object. A tool is, you would be surprised what I get answers for tools. So it's wide open. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the tool that I gravitate towards when I'm functional, the tool that I gravitate towards is creation.
Yeah. Wow.
And when I'm not functional, which happens a lot for me, when I'm not functional, the tool that I gravitate towards is like scrambling. But it's not like an effective tool. It's just like the only thing that's possible.
Yeah. What new toy do you gravitate towards or suggest?
Dildos all day. Joke. No, serious. It's not new, but it is a tool.
Yeah, I don't mean to laugh.
Oh, please laugh.
I love the honesty that you have in the you get it. I'm not like that's beautiful. And what do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
Oh man. Really? I can tell you? Oh, please let me tell you. Oh, Jane. There's this cat that I feed, and she lives right near where I swim. Oh my god, and swimming is a tool. Swimming is a tool that I gravitated towards after, like, the not the most recent scramble, but the, like a recent scramble. Swimming was a tool that really helped get me back into creation. Anyway, back to worrying. This cat, whose name is Georgie, I feed her. I found out that there's, like, a whole crew of people that work around there and hang around there that feed her. She's injured. And
Oh,
she's got her front right paw and her back left paw super injured, and she won't let us catch her, and we've been trying with traps and everything. And now the rescue place gave me antibiotics, so I've been putting that into her food, but I worry about her. I worry about her more than I worry about anything. Like
oh,
that.
that is amazing. So you can't. And is she eating the antibiotic food? Wow. So that's not necessarily going to enable you to capture her, but it might help her. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole
Wow.
point. Yeah.
So Marshall McLuhan learned from Ezra Pound, the poet, that artists are the antenna of the race. They can be detecting and projecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions so that we might be able to learn to cope with what we don't like about them. So, one of Marshall's main questions, and I ask you, is why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though artists are broadcasting them to us? And, and artists means literature, painting, film, in a broad term. Yeah.
Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects even though they are being broadcast to us by artists?
Yeah.
I think because we're fucking capitalists.
That is great.
When we're so boring, concerned with just well.
That is, we're boring fucking capitalists. That's my kind of answer. I like. How about this one then? Do artists have moral obligation?
Oh man. Yeah, that's a tough one. There was a moment that I thought that I believed that, and that's when I moved from fine arts into documentary filmmaking, and I did that without knowing what I was doing at all. Just like a project turned into a documentary film instead of a multimedia installation, or out of an idea that was multimedia installation. And that was my first film. That's how I moved into cinema, this like documentary feature film. And I had to read about documentary, and I had to, do most of the shooting and sound thankfully worked with an amazing editor. I learned how to edit from him. But when I was doing that, I was thinking that that I was doing what I was doing because I had a moral obligation. And it made me sick.
Wow.
That thought over time, I was just putting it on. It wasn't from me.
That is wild. That is. And so, are you more afraid of old ideas or more afraid of new ideas?
Hmm. Huh. 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 I'm more afraid of bad ideas.
Yeah.
And they're both new and old. But history repeats itself. And I know that you're happy with me converting what you're asking, but I also want to answer directly as well.
Mm.
And I think because history does repeat itself, and it's repeating itself right now in my home country, and not just regarding that land, but all over the world. So I guess bad ideas in
Yeah.
that context, but really bad is the real answer.
Yeah. It's really amazing. Thank you for doing that. Your side. You have the respect to go, I can convert the question, but I also want to answer the question. It's really a big picture. So, Anna, can you conjure up your earliest memory ever or one of them?
Hmm. It's fun. I think yes. And but also when I'm doing that right now, I'm also conscious of the photographs I've seen that are related to those moments. And so I always wonder if what I'm imagining as memory is actually true, or if it's what I've conjured up from having seen the images. But I remember, no, I can tell you something. When I was 5 and it was my birthday, my dad brought me home a hamster. And the hamster was in a cute wooden box, and I didn't know there was a hamster in there. And we opened, and I used to like remember things earlier, but I can't think of anything right now. And we opened the box, and the hamster was there, and I got to hold him, and feeling his paws on my hand and on my arms were, I remember those feelings.
Wow. Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
Mm, yeah. I mean, it's definitely both. And I've done a lot of things to try to forget or let go of or not be tortured by certain memories, or not be impacted, maybe not tortured, but like that too, but
Yeah.
not be impacted on a daily basis by certain memories, because there's definitely trauma that has happened, not just to me, but to you and to everybody,
Yep.
that we can only know has happened because of memories. And maybe they're not memories, but they're memories, right? And but then there's the fact that we have this ability to remember, to recall, is a blessing.
Yeah.
The fact that there are things that happen to us that are fucked up and that cause us to be fucked up, that's the curse, right?
Yeah.
And then our memory then takes that in as well.
Really well put. Tell me someone within your immediate family and then outside your immediate family, just briefly, who had an impact on you, was like a role model, maybe, and what specifically was that impact? Just briefly.
Okay. My mom,
What'd you get from your mom?
she's a graphic designer and interior designer. And so when I was a kid and I would draw, she would always encourage me and she would help me. And when I would have questions, she would guide me. And it was great. She's amazing. And she still helps me a lot creatively. Um,
Beautiful.
she's incredible. And outside of my immediate family, there are so many. There are so many. Inside of my immediate family, I think it might just be my mom, you know?
Wow. Your
And
mom is both. Because she
no, no,
means
no. No, I'm saying inside of my immediate family, it might just be my mom, but
If
outside of
oh,
my
oh, I see.
family,
Oh, it's just
so
your mom,
many,
but outside there's so many.
so
Yeah.
many. But
Well,
if I
if
had
you want to name one or two or,
yeah,
a couple, whatever.
yeah, um, that I've known personally, right? Um,
Yeah, you don't have to know them personally, but that's all right. You put it in the context you want. Wait,
okay,
I gotta tell you really quick.
yeah, tell me.
You know what Stan Brackage's wife of 30 years said? Someone outside your immediate family had an impact on you. She didn't hear the role model. She said Hitler. And freaked because she stressed an impact on me. It was totally legit, but it was so shocking because everybody hears the other word role model impact slash, but she heard impact and it was an important thing in her life.
Yeah,
So, anyways, I had to slip
wow,
that in 'cause I know
wow.
you.
Yeah, no, that's hardcore. Um, definitely not role model material, but definitely had an impact on me and my family as well. Um, so role model that also had an impact on me outside of my
Right.
immediate family. I'd say David Gatton. I'd
Oh, wow, David Gadden.
yeah, and
What'd
he
you
is
get what did you get from David?
well, he's my mentor. He's my film mentor, and I got to study with
Wow.
him in grad school, and he's
I
also
s
a very good friend.
Wow.
Both him and Aaron and Darwin are good friends.
Well,
So, yeah,
he I did all these questions with him many years ago. I
awesome.
I really wanna do them again. I usually like to do them, like, 10 years apart, but I think it's even been more than that. Yeah, we you gotta hook me up so you're still friends with him, that's
Yeah,
good.
yeah, he's
What town does he live in Colorado?
yeah, he's in Boulder.
Yeah,
Yep, up in
that's
the
cool.
mountains.
But,
Mhm.
I mean, I'm sorry, what's, like, one main thing you got from him? What do you think?
Yeah, I can answer that very easy and directly. I came to grad school for experimental and documentary film at Duke, thinking that I was gonna do an interactive documentary component for my feature doc, and then I was making, like, short, weird movies, and I had never seen experimental film before, or I thought I hadn't. I was at a Kenneth Anger screening 10 years before that, and I didn't even know that what I was seeing was what I was going to be living inside of. But anyway, so and then, you know, David showed some films in a class he was teaching that I was in. And after class one day, I asked him to do a meeting with me to watch my feature doc. And he said yes. And then another class later, I walked out of that room and I came up to him and I said, "Hey, I have a question." He said, "Yeah." I said, "Uh, am I allowed to make movies the way that I paint?" And he had the biggest smile on his face. And he said, "Yes, please. Yes." And that's when I, felt like I could do actually what I wanted to do and not feel like I had to have some moral obligation or whatever.
Right, yeah. That's a heavy impact, that was beautiful.
Yeah.
But it's also you had the sense to ask the question. I mean,
Well, he had the sense to show the movies and to do the
yeah,
lectures and to communicate with the students and with anybody who was in the room. Those rooms were full. There were like
yeah,
8 to 15 students in the class, but the entire room was full. So like 50 people every
wow,
single session. And he connected with each and every single human being in that room. And you could feel him completely. So yeah,
wow.
of course I felt comfortable asking him.
Wow, okay, did your parents raise you a particular religion?
No. Soviet Union, no religion allowed.
Do you pray?
I've been praying for Georgie.
If God exists, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
I've also been thinking that how do people believe that God exists while Putin is killing children?
Yeah,
Um, and they're still fucking praying. But
Yeah.
if God existed, um, God damn. Yeah, and I use that slang, but I don't know. What would he say, or she, or they?
Yeah.
And I did this, and maybe my parents are gonna watch this and they're gonna be like, "Oh, Anna, god damn it, we didn't know this, and I can't believe this is your I can't But so I was on this ayahuasca journey um in 2008, and I fell out of myself. And I was I, and as I was falling out, I was no longer I. The I fell away. And eventually I was in darkness, and the darkness was in me, and everything was one. And then there was a landing, and there was an embrace. And suddenly I had a different kind of sense of I-ness, because there were others that I could see, but they were blue, and they were electric blue, and they were with me, and we were embracing one another. And but not in the way that we embrace as human beings, right? And I think that's the closest to divinity that I've experienced. And if that's what happens when I die, and you know, after that, a lot more nothingness occurred, and it was heavenly. But if that's what happens when I die, hell yeah. And that's what God needs to say to me, that would be awesome.
You are great. Can you forget to die?
Oh, when I was 15, I wanted to be a vampire so bad. So bad. I watch a lot of vampire TV shows or listen to them while I'm working.
But what is refresh me? What, vampires can't die, or what is the
They
what
don't
is
die. They don't
they
die. They're mortal.
don't
They're
die?
mortal. I mean, they can get killed, but if
Yeah.
you theoretically can live forever, but there's ways to kill you if you're a vampire. I tried. There were people that I'm serious. There were people that told me they were vampires. I drank their blood, all sorts of stuff. Very colorful.
Do evil what a lineup for this. Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
I think all humans are fucking evil. I was having lunch with a friend of mine's father, and yesterday, and we were talking about how is it that Putin is doing this? How is it that
Right.
Putin did the same thing in Syria? How is it that, Hitler did that?
Yeah.
Stalin, all these fucking assholes. And people, why is it okay to kill civilians? Oh, because there's more possibility for reproduction, and they're disposable. We're
Yeah.
disposable. And you know what? Most people in my immediate circle, and in your immediate circle, and in everybody's immediate
Right.
circle, and you know what? Everybody will fucking deny it. But you know what? 90% of humanity will step on each other in order to get ahead, in order to get what they want. And there are also humans, and those same humans are also capable of extreme magic and extreme beauty and
Yeah.
extreme empathy. But it's disgusting what we're capable of.
Yeah. But it is the answer I get a lot is everyone's capable of evil. Yeah. But it flows right into this. How do you, Anna, advise someone to deal with an enemy? This I'm going to set up with a few modern thinkers' thoughts. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurais. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. So a lot of thoughts The question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
Before I do that, I'm going to go back to the previous question about
Sure.
evil.
Sure.
I don't think evil as a construct just like exists, right?
Right,
And
right.
I also don't think vampires are evil, just to like connect the dots a bit. But but like, not that we're capable of evil, but not that we're capable of good and evil. I think those are fucked up words. But we are inherently out for ourselves and our own families.
I see.
And so, if it's good for us, we will do X. And maybe people will be good to me because they consider me their family.
Yeah.
And vice versa. Can people be indiscriminately good? Maybe only the enlightened, and maybe only when they're in a great headspace. I don't know. I think we're too self-involved as humans, and I think that goes back to the early questions about thought.
Yeah.
So about enemies, and about acknowledging your enemies, I think this actually relates to what my mom taught me when I was a kid, which I've always disagreed with. Like, don't give somebody power over you, right?
Yeah.
By acknowledging that they even exist, or acknowledging that they're doing anything harmful to you. I don't agree with that. And I don't really like the concept of the concept of enemy is already giving somebody power over you.
Yeah.
And so if there is an enemy in your life, they already have that power, and you don't have to acknowledge or not acknowledge them. If it makes your life easier and you don't want to talk to them and you don't want to look at them and you don't want to remember their name, good for you. But I don't think that is part of my lexicon. How do you deal with an enemy? I mean, all those quotes come from a place of power.
Yeah.
And so if I am somebody who is in a position of power over the person who may or may not be my enemy, or who may be my enemy for the sake of this question, then I can treat them whatever way I want and think of them whatever way I want. If I am not in a position of power over that person, if I am of a lower class, I'm in a lower caste system than them, or my career is at a lower place, or my whatever age is whatever is counted as capital. I don't know if I have the privilege of having any of those feelings or declarations about them. And how I personally treat enemies, it's really difficult for me. It impacts me. It impacts me greatly, and it takes over the forefront of my brain.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard.
Wow. You said a lot. I really appreciate too that you listen, and you're really listening closely. This skateboarding philosopher in Venice Beach told me, when I says, how do you deal with the enemy? He says, enemy. That when you name them, that's it. And you name them, then they become your enemy. So I just had also, you really evoked a question I love to ask, but I never ask anymore. But it's almost, I feel it should be squeezed in here, is, when did you feel most loved? And it comes from, you were in a way touching on what I call unconditional love. Because, it's a great term, unconditional love. And you want to grow up and think you can, I mean, once we realize our mom's giving us milk and doing something nice, that's like, there it seems as the mom has unconditional love, but then you cry a little too much, and and then the rest of your life, so yeah, I mean, you tell me, is that a good question I should add? When did you most feel love in your life? Or is it a little too,
Oh, I
I
love
don't
that
know.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I mean, I think a lot of people are very well, are raised, maybe a lot of people that you're interviewing are raised in America. And so, or raised in America at a certain time.
Most of them are, you're right.
Yeah. And so maybe for them, it's a little too, just like maybe for current Americans, it's a little too much to ask about when people lost their virginity. And I'm just like brazen, you know. Roger Beebe said he did a show. I was at Flex a few weeks ago, and during his performance, he said, "In this film, I don't know I have this title that I've been using, but I don't want it. If anybody has a title, just let me know." And later, I texted him a title, and he was like, "Yeah, you do have the hubris to do that." And it's like, of course I do. Like, what am I? But so I think the question of when did you feel the most loved? I think that's a great question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do I answer it? Yes, I do. Um, I think I often feel the most loved when I am also doing the most loving.
Yeah. Wow.
And often those experiences are with animals and in water a lot. I mean, I know we started talking about water
Yeah.
earlier, but it's true. And rarely, but it does happen with humans.
Yeah. Do you know the song Nature Boy by Nat King Cole made it a hit? It's written by the first hippie, proto hippie, Eden Abez. It's an amazing song. Everybody's done it, John Coltrane and Ella Fitzgerald. And it's like once you heard it, you'll probably go, "Oh, I've heard this." So look it up, Nature Boy. The line is, "The greatest thing you'll ever learn is to love and be loved in return."
I know the song. Yeah.
Yeah, it is like, what a line.
Yeah.
Because that like when you answered it so well, when you're giving unconditional love, that's when you're feeling, so beautiful. So James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin about 100 years ago. He ran a cinema called Volta Cinema. He basically checked out. He said, "This is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree?" Years later, years later, Faulkner said, "Sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism." Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Anna, why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. To see how other people see and experience, right? And to be
Yeah,
able to not, I mean, it's not about like walking a mile in somebody else's shoes, but to be able to see anew.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you've well, you haven't really, but just sort of walk me through your career or your calling. Your mom's a graphic artist. You're growing up encouraging you to create. I imagine she's taking you to art museums and you start forming an aesthetic on painting. So you first pursue painting. So where was the kick? Where I'm sort of looking for the tipping points where you said, "I'm going to pursue painting," and then the tipping point you sort of described it. I'm going to pursue experimental filmmaking. So, yeah, your tipping point for doing paintings, let's say.
Okay. I'll tell you both. It's very
Yeah.
easy. I was 7. We were immigrating as refugees from Ukraine when it was part of the Soviet Union. We're in Italy and we're in Rome and we visit the Sistine Chapel. My mom, my dad, and I. And I'm staring up at the ceiling on the wall and I point and I say, I want to do that when I grow up.
Wow, that is cool.
Yeah. And, I knew then. And like my mom, when I was younger than that, I don't know if anybody was encouraging me to pursue anything. I think it was more like I'm drawing stupid things, right? I'm drawing mice, and these mice are sometimes as mice, and sometimes they're dressed in like human clothes and they're doing stuff. Sometimes I'm drawing peacocks, and sometimes I'm drawing trees. And like my mom might help me with a feather. And when I was drawing humans, she would help me with heads when I would ask. But the desire to pursue fine arts or the plastic arts or whatever term we want to use, like I think was all my own. And in principle, the rest of my family was against that. My mom just supported me. She supported my desires, but my family was against it. They're like, we immigrated from such a horrible place for you to have, it's a land of opportunity. Go make money and do something with your life. What are you doing? They weren't wrong. But I got to do what I wanted and I pursued it. And I think the inciting moment came in the Sistine Chapel. Film, like experimental film, I did say what it was. It was that conversation with David, but cinema in general happened. I kind of referred to it earlier. I was working on this project that I thought was going to be a multimedia installation. And then a friend of mine, we were in a hookah bar in Chicago, and he looked at me and he said, because I was complaining that I can't apply for too much funding. There's nothing around. I don't know what the fuck to do, but I want to do this project. And he looked at me and he said, let's make a film. And I said, but Rodian, I don't know anything about film. And he said, well, I do. And we can get a team together. And then, that's what happened. So
But just to go before that, did you grow up, were your parents showing you movies on DVDs or VHS or cable, or they take you to movie theaters and there were points where you were getting some sort of buzz off the movie experience?
I never thought, like I was making art, and by the point that I was making fine art, the video was also a way to make art. But I was never going to go that route, right? I was never interested at all. And my
Right.
parents, very different culture back in Eastern Bloc. And there's no like them showing me DVDs and trying to culture me. It was more like, what are they watching? And it was, we'd watch Tarkovsky. Like I grew up watching Tarkovsky.
You're kidding. On what medium?
I don't know. Maybe VHS, maybe just TV. I don't know.
But not in a movie theater.
I don't think so. No.
Wow. And how were you were your parents going, we love this, and you were loving it? Or
I think that I don't remember to
right.
be 100%. I don't remember, but I remember seeing Tarkovsky as an adult and with people who'd never seen Tarkovsky. And I'd be like, oh yeah, like let's watch this movie. I saw this when I was a kid. It'd be fun to see as an adult. And like watching it as an adult, I continued to be moved by the things that I'm sure I was moved by when I was a kid that would feel familiar to having
Right. So is it almost, just really quick, is it almost like a kid growing up seeing Spielberg or Hitchcock? You were seeing him as that sort of role, or was that art cinema? Was that mainstream cinema or art cinema for you?
I think it was mainstream for me. I don't
Wow.
think that, yeah.
That is mind blowing.
Yeah.
And so then that's funny because you said, I saw it, Kenneth Anger. I didn't even know it was experimental. You know what Kenneth Anger's line I always use is, he says, the day humans invented cinema was a black day for mankind. Yeah, if you're fucking Kenneth Anger, it is. So then, okay, you sort of covered that. That was good. You can go more into it if you want, but a screenwriting teacher told me great art, great film, great painting is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process?
Great question. And can I answer it not just in my creative process, but how I feel about it in general?
You can go any route you want, definitely.
Cool. In my own work, I don't care if anybody knows what I was thinking and what I was intending. I care if the thing works. I care if the audience or the person in the room looking at the paintings or a photograph or whatever the fuck I'm making, if they have an experience. And if the experience is one of the thing working, having synthesis between structure, concept, content, and form. That's it. That's all I care about. And so the age old saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. When I'm teaching and I have students who are like, actually, my intention was this and this. I'm like, I actually don't give a fuck what your intention was. This shit doesn't work. But this is about this thing that's really important to me. Congratulations, make it work. I do not care. When I go to the theater and I see a film, when I'm watching a film on my computer, when I'm watching it at my friend's house on a big screen, I don't give a fuck what they're dealing with, what social issue, what important contemporary content is there. If it doesn't work, get it out of here. If it doesn't need to be a film, get it out of here. I do not want to look at it at all.
Wow. So that's fun. I love this. Tell me your feeling. I never ask anyone this. Well, I bring it up, but I don't ask it. When people stand in front of the movie before that starts the screening, and they go, "Today you're going to see my film," and I blah 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 blah. I hope you enjoy the film. It's a ritualized cliche to say that. Bugs me. You're telling me enjoy, but should I let it go because it's just the ritualized thing everybody says? Because one person said, I hope you have an experience once. I go, are you kidding? They didn't say, oh, it doesn't matter who they are. If they're artists I love, they go, hope you enjoy the show. I'm like, cringe.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
I also have ridiculous things that I say that are just habitual, and like people call me out on them and I call myself out on them. Like when I'm leaving, I'm like, have fun, peace in the Middle East, peace, see ya. Like all these things, like none of them mean anything. They're just part of this thing that I have developed.
Yeah.
And so these larger things that are socially acceptable, that are just words that don't mean anything, and in regards to cinema, they're meaningless. They're totally meaningless. But you made me also think about this recent film, the most recent film I made. I don't even know if I sent you the link to that, but I can. This film is a brain breaker, and I want it to torture the audience, right?
Oh, I saw there was a strobe one and I didn't
that's
watch
the one.
it, but I will watch it because I use strobe in my films too. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the most torturous film. And like the flicker in that film is really audacious. And I didn't hold back on this film.
Yeah.
Not with sound, not with image, and not with content. And it does torture my audience. And it's really great. That makes me very happy. It's torture. That's all I wanted. So
Yeah.
I wanna maybe next time I show it and I get to speak in front of the audience beforehand, maybe I'll say, enjoy the show and see what happens after.
But you're actually agreeing that it's actually called phatic communication. Phatic communication is casual communication. Guy's got a flat tire and you walk up to him and go, you got a flat? And they go, of course I do. You can say it's flat. And you just go, it's water cooler talk. And we got to excuse it. But I got to tell you, because I've studied this thing called psychosomatic cinema, and even though my path has gone haywire, it was sort of based in Ann Arbor. Bruce McClure was showing us cinema, and a woman had her period start, and she ran out of the theater. So I said, well, that was psychosomatic cinema. So I try to study what. There's a lot of it. It's like old feel-good movies made you cry. Is that psychosomatic? And they go, no, that's not psychosomatic. Someone told me psychosomatic is it makes you do something. I don't know. I got it all mixed up, but it is a physical thing, like The Exorcist would make someone throw up, or well, do you have to put a label in front of your strobe film that says this?
That's a very good question, and that's something that came up at the first time it screened when I was present for it. And when I send it to people, like I sent it to you, and
you put it.
I make a note that say, flicker warning and pain-inducing sounds warning, because it's both. It's not just like
wow. Well, no, and so you mean your first screening you didn't tell people?
well, the first screening was at a festival. I mean, I've shown it to other people, and
Yeah.
when I've shown it to other people, I've done the same thing that I did with you.
You did
And
a verbal or you did a printed. Yeah.
or whatever. But
Yeah.
in any one way, everybody knew that they should be
Yeah.
careful. But at this festival, I was asked the question, and my film fell on the third day of the festival in the second to last program of that night. And there was only one more day of the festival, and it was a half day. So, and the question was like, what do you think about flicker warnings? Do you think they're important? Do you think that people with epilepsy or
Yeah.
anything that would prevent them from being able to do this are, welcome at experimental film screenings? And, I know that the person said, I know that there have been other films that have had flicker, and, yours is the most intense. And I said, yeah, I totally agree. And I love this question. I do. I love this question. And I think it's important for all of us to think about it. And I think we do think about it, right? But like everything else, we are going to keep talking about it because there isn't a standard yet. And why there isn't a standard yet, I don't know. I'm not going to put it in front of the film. I'm not going to make it part of the film. I'm not. There isn't a countdown. This isn't a 16 millimeter film that is on a projector that has a countdown that can have a warning in the beginning. It's just starts in black. I'm not going to change how the film exists. It can be in the program if it's going to be in a festival.
It's in the program. You mean that Q&A was after it's screened?
Yeah, and it wasn't in the program, and it wasn't stated by the person who introduced the program. And so my personal thoughts, and my film wasn't the only flicker film in that program. And
before your film, there were flicker films?
Oh yeah, throughout the entire festival. So like I know, and that film is being programmed at other festivals too. And I'm curious how those programs are going to look, because that is the most insane film I've made. So I've been interested in seeing how people deal with that in programming, but also the programmer knows. And when I send it to a program, I make a note.
They're the curator. They should, because I showed a flicker film once, and a guy had an epileptic fit in the front row, and that from that point on, I says, "Oh, I'm responsible," because they could fall down, hit their head, and hurt themselves. So I says, "I'm going to say it." And I say it all the time but you will love this. my editor and graphic guy on the titles, he puts the strobe effect title in strobe.
It was a film like that at the
it says warning, strobe effects, and it's in strobe. But Tony Conrad, the way I understand it, I might not have it exactly right, but they told him, dude, you got to start doing that. Says, because I think he was sort of the first that strobed. But actually, we're going to get to a question about that.
Wait, can I say something real quick?
Yeah, sure.
At that same festival, the day before, there was a film that had strobe in it and had a strobe warning in strobe also.
Oh my God.
That had a strobe warning, and it was in strobe.
So that's, I don't even know what the question. I'm going to just stick with, okay. So that was really good. I can't wait to see it. I love it.
Cool.
I mean, you go to, sometimes in Ann Arbor, you're in this huge 1920s movie palace, and the screen is just going, and it really is quite astounding when you have the big movie theater and the potential that strobe really hasn't been used in mainstream cinema too much.
Right.
Yeah.
It's sometimes used in thrillers and in like cop shows.
Yeah. So McLuhan talks about how everything we invent, whether it's tangible or not, is an extension of our humanness. So knife and fork extends our teeth. Clothing extends our skin. The shutter in a camera or a projector extends our eyelid. Maybe religion or philosophy extends consciousness or whatever. What does I mean, did you make most of your films with the Bolex?
I don't know if it's most of, but
But
as of late, I'm working mostly on 16. Yeah.
let's just say the moving image camera. We could do the paintbrush and the moving image camera. What humanness does the paintbrush extend? And I was assuming, you being a painter, you used a paintbrush. Okay. What humanness does this paintbrush extend, and what humanness does the moving image camera extend for you?
I'm going to think for a sec.
Oh, take your time. No worries.
For me, it's just intuition.
Yeah.
That's all it is. With
Yeah.
all of the work that I make. I mean, I also screen print, whatever. Like, and I might have ideas that I'm working with, but when I have the object in my hand, the paintbrush or the camera,
Yeah.
or the rewinds or the splicer or whatever,
Yeah.
it's about gut reactions.
Yeah.
It's what is necessary.
Isn't it funny, the word gut? And then I'm going to interject this question now, because my friend said there's 3 T's in music: technique, theory, and taste. So theory, same thing with film. You can learn the theory. Technique, you can learn how to do it. How does one acquire taste, whether in film or in music, or any of these?
Yeah. Again, something that I struggle with because it's another elitist concept, right?
Yes.
So, to develop taste, to develop technique, and to develop theory, you have to have education.
Yeah.
And you have to, whether it's traditional school education or self education. And, but, then people feel that they don't have access to X or Y because they don't have access to that kind of education to develop these things. But I don't know if taste, sure, having good taste is something that is valued, but I don't know if it's important. I don't know if it's important. And technique is only relevant if the people who are looking or experiencing are ones who are aware of the same theories and the same historical context that
Yeah.
you are aware of. And same with taste, like it comes out of, oh, I know why you have this kind of taste and why you have that kind of taste. So I think it's complicated.
It's really, but it was funny because you said gut. When you said intuition, extend your intuition, then you say gut, and then taste is connected sort of to gut, just metaphorically.
Oh,
Like you taste and then it goes into your gut. But that's like another thing I love to complain about, and I think it's valid, is once Ann Arbor got going, then you got all these people teaching experimental film. It wasn't being taught in the 60s. Then everybody started, I don't think experimental film was really being taught until maybe 70s or 80s. Film was being taught, but they weren't going, can I take an experimental film class? So maybe it was a little, and so then you get the James Bennings and Chris Marker and who's the other, Rob Todd, and then all the kids or younger people go, they take the class, then they become clones of their teachers. And usually their first film, which is a clone of their teacher, is their best film. And that was like so sad in a way. But it's like, you can't escape it because it became a teachable subject. Experimental film. Oh, I'm learning. Like you learn from David, and he was a great, I know he's a great teacher and a great filmmaker. So it's interesting.
can I say
Yeah.
something regarding
Oh,
the creation?
please. We're going to get deep into all that right now
Well,
anyways. Yes.
So, do you know Sir Joshua Reynolds'
No,
three
no.
edicts? So, Sir Joshua Reynolds believes that there are three stages of art making. In the first stage, your personal ideas and your personal predilections are put away so that you can gain skills, and you are copying the masters in order to gain those skills. So let's say drawing, you would be copying a Da Vinci drawing over and over and over again until you were able to exactly mimic.
Yes.
And then the next level, and of course you would copy other masters. Then, and this stage can last any number of years. The next stage is when you apply those skills to your own ideas, right? But your ideas are still secondary. You are now applying those concepts forward and those techniques forward, but you are utilizing what you learned from the masters.
Right.
And the third, you can abandon, and you will never abandon, right? But because you can't, because now it's ingrained. But you now are allowed to let go towards becoming a master, which is developing your own methodologies, developing your own techniques, and not being attached to those masters. So when people graduate from any program, right, whether it's experimental film, whether it's painting,
Yeah.
graduating from my undergrad in painting, I definitely painted and drew like those I admired, including my undergrad mentor, Jason Franz, and including Da Vinci, and including Michelangelo, and I could go on. Nerdrum was a huge inspiration at the time. And then I kept going, and I think I developed my own thing. I hope I did.
That
But
was great. Now, is this Sir Joshua Reynolds? I can Wikipedia him. He's
oh yeah.
just
Yeah.
from way back. That is really heavy because that's my whole thing. I have a wannabe chart. And it was a joke, and Craig Baldwin goes, "That is heavy, blah blah blah." And I said, "It's a fucking joke," but it's yeah. I can't wait till you read it because
I
you'll
would love
get
to read it.
you'll get it. You know.
Yeah, I'd love to read it. And I also love Craig Baldwin too.
Oh, I know. I love Craig. I've asked him all these questions like 8 times, and he'd
I
always go,
bet.
"That's a stupid question," and then he ran.
I love that.
So, here we go. Well, just to get a feel, I asked for 90 minutes. It's evident we could go on and on, but I don't know how long you can last. We could do it in 2 parts, or we can just go on and on now.
I can
Fine.
last, baby. I can last.
Good.
It's up to you.
Good. Okay. So Peter Greenway said cinema is much too rich a medium to be left to storytellers. Are experimental filmmakers doing something completely different or telling a story in a different way? And I know it's not really a well-worded question because I sort of add Tony Conrad's The Flicker is just black and white going on and off. Me and you could watch it and have a story go through our head, but he didn't really say, I'm going to tell a story. Then Andrew Noren said, if you put one frame after another, that is narrative, that is linear. It doesn't matter if it's abstract. But just this idea of cinema is much too rich a medium to be left to storytellers. Any comment?
Totally, lots of comments. You know, I know that storytelling is supposed to be thought of as the highest form of like that humans can aspire to, highest form of communication and passing things down. I am not so into story. Personally, I'm not so into story. And if I am into story, I'm not into traditional ways of storytelling. Now, do I think that anything that has a beginning, a middle, and an end is a story? I mean, I can argue that, and I have argued that when somebody says, "Well, that film isn't a story." And I'm like, "Actually, it began, this happened in the middle. We can't argue that. And then it ended. and it ended in this way, and there was a climax. It even has a 3-act structure. I can argue it all day. But I'm not that interested in those kinds of structures, right?
Yeah.
And like, if I want to read a story or if I want to watch a story, I'll watch Law and Order or I'll watch Doctor House, which I do plenty, man. I watch Doctor House. I listen to Doctor House on repeat while I'm working any kind, like whether I'm doing the gigs I'm doing or whether I'm painting or whether I'm editing just image, I'll listen to Doctor House nonstop.
Yeah.
If I'm on the optical printer, Dr. House is going. Sometimes it's House of Cards. Sometimes it's Dexter. It's got to be evil so that it can get all the negativity out of me, all the anger. But yeah, that's where stories are in my world. I'm not, if I'm watching like a documentary film and it's the age-old conventional, I'm offending so many people in my own head and maybe that are
No, I
watching.
know what you're saying. No, that's all right.
Yeah, but, like, the conventional stuff is just boring to me, and it has always been boring to me, not just because of my education.
Yeah.
And maybe because of how I was raised with Tarkovsky as, like, standard mainstream stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, when David Gatton introduced me to Sergei Parajanov, I yelled at my parents for never showing me Parajanov. I was
Wow.
really fucking pissed because comes from my neck of the woods. And I was like, Mom, Dad, why didn't you show him to me? Did you not know him? And they were both like, no, we knew him. I was like, why the fuck didn't you show him to me? What's wrong with you? You know, that, and like, yeah, there's stories in Parajanov's films. There definitely are, but they're not like so boring, man. I
Right.
can tell you my fucking life story. It'll be just as boring, you know? Like,
It's like Peter Greenaway said, D.W. Griffith, no, Marty Scorsese is not doing anything different than D.W. Griffith. They do different techniques and this or that, you know, and there's Marty does good, okay, films sometimes. And it's that it's just narrative hijacked cinema for 100 years. And it's
yeah,
his, yeah, it's a hijacking. So
yeah, and it's fucking boring.
yeah. Okay. So this is if me and you are 60 years ago sitting with George Manupelli, we may ride the magic carpet ride and time travel. We're going to start the festival. Should it be more inclusive or exclusive? And I'm going to set it up. I asked Chick Strand. She said she was starting Canyon Cinema around the same time with Bruce Bailey. They were trying to recreate their 11-cent movie-going experience by showing a newsreel, a cartoon, and then an experimental film. And Brackage came up to him and says, don't show the other stuff, just show experimental. So should we be more inclusive or exclusive?
Inclusive as in
Well,
including other types of
inclusive,
cinema?
basically Ann Arbor's always shown experimental and then some animation and some documentary, but they didn't really show mainstream. So it's sort of like, should we show Betty Boop, Hitchcock, and then Chick Strand and Bruce Conner, or should we just show Chick Strand and Bruce Conner?
You and me starting a festival
Yeah,
tomorrow.
yeah.
Provided we agree and that I'm not the only voice at the table, but if we agree on the following, then I mean, that's the most important thing. If we're starting a festival, we have to have the same goals, right?
Vision, yeah.
But if we do, I 100% think I would want to show just experimental and I would want to focus
Inclusive.
on shorts.
Yeah.
Only experimental films.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what are the services and disservices of marginalizing experimental film? And let me suss it out. Jackson Pollock was on the cover of Life magazine in 49. Regular folks could start developing an aesthetic on experimental painting. There was no Bruce Conner or Maya Deren on Life magazine's covers. Generally, it's privileged or entitled. I call them rich art kids, but it's not their fault. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's just say entitled, who develop an avant-garde aesthetic and dominate the experimental film world. Any comment?
What was the question at the beginning? Because I got really invested in
Yeah,
the
what are the services and disservices of marginalizing experimental film?
And what do you mean by marginalizing?
Well, that's it's sort of like
here.
I try to make it not sound too biased, but experimental film, it's sort of like you brought up the word capitalist earlier. It's sort of like art and capitalism in avant-garde film. It's not poor kids. They're not making, I mean, it's all rich white kids who are making experimental films. I mean, there's exceptions, and I'm glad there are, and people go in but it's just privileged dominate the experimental film world. So, I mean, what are the services and disservices of that? I
Mhm.
mean, can we, I'm sort of trying to go about it without a bias, but I'm sort of saying, isn't it bad that we do that? But
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, and maybe that's why I asked for clarification, because I don't think that that's my experience. I mean, I definitely have found myself surrounded by people of greater wealth than me
yeah,
and have found them to be the ones that get further ahead, whether they're white or not. But that they have been wealthier and that they own multiple houses and are younger than me and are like starting labs and whatever. And I'm like processing film in my bathroom, and I'm sitting right now in a closet, which is where I edit. Um, and I think the DIY community mainly is run by non-rich and
yeah,
predominantly white, unfortunately, but
yeah,
non-rich kids.
yeah.
And I think that is because they have to do it on their own and they can't pay a ton of people. And I don't know if historically it's been rich kids always. I mean, unless I'm mistaken, Jonas Mekas came over here with nothing.
Right. Oh, yeah. Jonas is a good example of, but
And
then at the end of Jonas's career, at the end of Jonas's career, he's selling, uh, t-shirts to Paris kids that say Jonas because that's like all the poor to them. So, you know, it's a stupid question in a way because it's like it isn't it's not something I want to encourage. So let
yeah,
we can move on. Here's the question that we sort of tackle with the strobe thing. I talked to Michael Apted 40 years ago. He made a documentary on a Russian rock star. And I said, right when MTV was breaking, I says, why do rock video editors feel so obliged to edit fast? He said, because we've learned to take in information. We can learn to take in information faster. And Marty Scorsese says, I cut my films faster because of MTV. Most people don't know Abel Gance invented rapid montage in 1922, but it really flourished right then in the 80s. And they're cutting these, rock videos fast. And now editing's pace is super fast. Can we literally learn to take in information faster, or are we just brainwashed to believe we can?
so I don't think that we touched upon this with strobe, because for me, my experience with strobe, or my desire for strobe experience, is to be impacted physically, right? And
Right.
physiologically. It's
Yeah.
not to take in any information.
Right. 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 Right.
So like Paul Schertz, Tony Conrad,
Yeah.
I'm all in, baby. I'm all in, and
Yeah.
I'm there for it, and I want things to change inside of me. And I
Yeah.
want the room to change, and I want everybody in the room with me to be transformed.
Yeah.
Um, and just to go back to the previous question, I hope the room is made up of non-white, non-rich kids. 'Cause that's it.
Yeah.
But
But yeah, I didn't mean to imply they were that connected. It's just that in my questions asked with a bias,
yeah,
can we learn to take in information faster? And let me just add this.
yeah.
Really, what I'm asking is, and if it's not applicable, tell me, is it literally possible for humans to multitask?
Awesome. When I was younger, I thought that I could multitask very well. As I age, I find that I don't want to multitask, even if
Yeah.
I can. And that my brain, I mean, I don't know, I might have ADD, ADHD, whatever the hell, but I don't have any money and I don't have health insurance. So I'm not going to get diagnosed anytime soon. But I end up thinking multiple thoughts at any given time. And so when I am doing multiple things at the same time, I may be more productive because my brain is occupied, which is why I have stupid TV shows running in the background so that my brain can't do 8 fucking things, right? So I don't know for normal human beings or for human beings that like have social capital, what they think or how they function.
Yeah.
But when I'm watching film and it is edited too quickly, I get super annoyed. I get super, super, super annoyed. I'm a huge fan of slow cinema.
Yeah.
One of the recent films that I've seen that I've loved is Nomadland. And I know it's been hailed and also criticized. And I understand where both parties are coming from, groups are coming from. However, as an experience, as a film for this particular creature, it was a divine experience, especially coming from mainstream cinema.
Yeah.
Slow, methodical, impactful. You could feel things.
Yeah.
Holy God. It's such a rarity. I reveled in it.
It's really well put. And it's like when I asked Craig Baldwin this question, he says, well, we've learned to speed read, and people say speed reading didn't work really. But, it's again, people think they can learn to take in information faster. There's this thing called TSA, tactile situational awareness. And it's when you're a bomber in a plane and your plane gets hit, you can't study every gauge. You have to make all these decisions immediately. And my friend says that's what kids do now. They have Facebook on, Instagram, TikTok, and they don't relate to one. They have a bigger picture view. So it's hard to say if they're getting in, people older say, well, no, they're not getting information. They're not learning information faster. They're thinning it out.
Well, I don't know what they're doing, but wait, can you remind me TSA?
Yeah.
Tactile.
Tactile situation awareness. Yeah.
Tactile situational awareness. Okay,
Yeah.
so when you're shooting out in the world with your Bolex
Yeah.
and you're like changing lenses, changing f-stops, I don't know, maybe you're even changing shutter speeds, maybe you're putting on ND filters, you're also recording audio simultaneously or maybe not simultaneously, and you have to think about all those things. And when I was making my feature doc and when I'm working digitally and when I'm working for other people digitally, because the Bolex sounds like a Bolex, so I'm not usually recording audio simultaneously, but when I'm working digitally and I'm doing dual system, I am constantly monitoring both the image and the sound. And I have to manage all of this, and I have to manage the interview questions or like follow the character, whatever the fuck I'm doing. And I'm able to do it because I am skilled in the particular thing I'm doing. And maybe the bomber, unfortunately, those people exist. I think those people are worse than the rich fucking white kids.
There you go. That is
I hate them both. I don't envy either. But like I think they're not the kids, not the rich white kids, but the bomber and the filmmaker are using tactile spatial situational awareness, as well as the young kids who are on like Instagram, TikTok, and whatever the fuck else they're on, and playing video game at the same time. And they're able to manage all of that because they've trained themselves to be good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very well put. Yeah. Deb, but I have to slide this in because I asked Sabine and I don't think she'd seen it. Have you seen the documentary called Beyond the Bolex? Oh my God, you're gonna freak out. Just listen to this for a second.
I'm writing this down. Yeah.
This woman goes to a film school. She starts taking a film class, and she finds out her grandfather invented the Bolex.
Whoa.
So she goes up to the teacher and go, I was thinking about making a doc on my grandfather inventing the Bolex. And the teacher went, what? And it took her 16 years. And, I don't want to talk too much about the film, but do you know Phil Hoffman Film Farm? Have you ever gone?
Nope, I would love
Oh,
to. I can't afford it, so.
I got lucky. I went one year, and the film Beyond the Bolex starts with 16 mm film hanging on a clothesline in a
Film farm,
farm,
fuck yeah.
and it starts with the film farm shot, and that's just like, but it's worth seeing because the guy who invented the Bolex also made like experimental films.
That's so awesome. You know,
And a
he's Ukrainian, right? He was a Ukrainian dude.
Yeah, oh, it's an amazing story. I think, all I can't I can't figure out why, because Barbara Hammer, Jonas Mekas, all these people are in it. But at the end, she has to have like Jackass and David Lynch and Spielberg all started with the Bolex, but she just slides it in seconds. But her emphasis is Jonas before he died, Barbara Hammer before he died, and she's got Phil. She really did.
Good
You
girl.
gotta say she did. It was pretty cool.
Good girl.
But I think it sort of burned her out too a little. It was a long. She didn't
She'll
think it was.
recover. She'll
Yeah,
recover. I recovered
good,
after my future doc.
good. That's great.
I'm writing all
What
this down.
Good. What was the motive of the cave artist? Just off the top of your head, your guess or hunch.
I think if you would have asked me this 20 years ago, I probably would have had a guess or a hunch. But by now, I've been so inundated with theories that I don't think I can have a guess or a hunch
Yeah,
because I'm polluted with other people's guesses and hunches that have been put into history books.
exactly. You are such a good listener because I usually go, don't tell me what you saw in the Herzog film or the New Yorker article he based this film on. But okay, we'll just move on then. What's more important, conviction or compromise?
Whew! Conviction, baby. Conviction. No compromise. No compromise. I have to compromise sometimes, but I fucking hate it. And I want to say one thing about cave art that is not answering the question, but it is referring to somebody. And I'm sure you have read Devotional Cinema by Nathaniel Dorsey,
Yes.
but in that book, he speaks about the cave art as devotional art.
Yeah.
And that's all I want to say. And
Okay.
that's where I want to put myself. I don't want to put myself in any of the other fucking things that have been said about it.
Yeah, I should be honest. I have the book, but I don't know if I've really read it.
Only 50 pages, bro.
No, I'm an idiot. I don't know how to read.
I'll read it to you. I'll make you an audio recording. It's the best book ever. It's so good.
You've accomplished a lot. How do you rate these three elements? Luck, skill, and ambition. What played the highest role, second and third?
Luck, skill, and ambition.
Yeah.
Ambition, number
Is
one.
number one?
Yes. And like, it's annoying how dedicated and how much conviction I have. And like, it's not the dirty word ambition, like, because I know that the word ambition can be dirty and can be like put on people who are, manipulative in ways, but that's not how I think about ambition. I think about ambition like drive. Skill would be second,
And then luck.
and then luck. And I mean, luck, I wish I was way more lucky than I am, man. I really do.
Well, what can I say? It was good. It was, the question used to be, is ambition based more on fear or joy? And then would always, most people say fear. And so
Really?
yeah, it
I
was
thought you
weird.
were saying most people say joy because it's fucking joy. Why fear?
Yeah, well, but I mean, it's beautiful, but they, fear of failure. So they have to be ambitious. But I changed, you might love this. I changed the wording because uh, William Friedkin said in Hollywood, skill and luck have nothing to do with it. It's all ambition. and I thought it was funny. I'd give him the three choices. So
That's hot. That's really hot. Yeah,
just
ambition based on fear. Sorry, I'm going back to this.
yeah, is ambition based more on fear or joy? You can answer it. Yeah.
I mean, joy. It's all joy. Like I just
Well,
don't understand. I mean, I don't understand people who would answer fear because I mean, I don't know, maybe people who are like gonna go be CEOs of
Yeah.
Vimeo and then ruin
They're
it for
it's fear of failure.
them
I
maybe, but like I don't what the fuck am I gonna fail at, Jerry? Like, uh, like what am
well,
I doing? Like I
here's
can't
the here's the other thing if you go a little deeper. I like to say, oh, 80% of people say this, 80%. I've never really charted everything. I
think
go with I go with what I hear, and it seems as though a lot of people say are people more feeling or thinking beings? 90% say feeling. Okay, so but I don't really chart it
yeah,
and they will go, well, let me, add. So then it might not be that blatant thing. So I have this tendency to spew back. Well, that was great because you didn't go with the norm and you said something. It's just like my way of being uh fed a communication. I'm just like one person got really upset with me because that was a great answer, great words. And they go, quit pandering to my answers. They were
who does
like,
that?
I forgot, but it was great because they were like, quit saying that was a great answer after every answer. So yeah, he
Well,
says that's just the way I am. I'm sorry. I said,
yeah. But I think it's also encouraging, it's like we can go back to sex, right? It's like when you're having sex with somebody and you're like, that feels good, right?
yeah,
If you don't fucking say it feels good, that person never knows if
never
what you
knows.
did
Yeah,
is
yeah,
all right or if you didn't like it. They don't know if you're doing a good job. They have no
that's right.
idea.
That's
So like
right.
if I don't tell you that I think that your question was cool and you don't
Yeah,
tell me that you think my
yeah,
answer was cool, that I
yeah,
might we might both hedge on the next round, you know?
yeah. Yeah, no, it's well put. That's why I appreciate you getting. So T.S. Eliot said that poetry is outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
This goes back to an early question. Yeah, unfortunately, my inner dialogue has become in the language that we use to read, write, and speak. I hate it. My inner dialogue used to not be that.
It used to be visual.
It used to be something else, like maybe visual, maybe just sensual, but
You can't necessarily describe it in words.
yeah, but it was experiential and it was like reactionary and
Yeah,
it was just yeah, but now it's very much inside my head is always words. I hate it.
yeah. Um, Abigail Child, you know her films? I says, "What language is your inner dialogue in?" And she goes, "I wish I knew." I love that answer. It's
What a
like
cutie.
so George Manupelli's mantra is ignore yourself. Jonas Mekas says there is no self-expression. And Cecil Taylor, a great jazz pianist, says, I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me. I know it's both and it depends, but just again, however you feel. Is art making, filmmaking more self-expression or more you're a vehicle for whatever dominant technology or culture is present?
Oh, ah, I don't like that last part.
Yeah.
For whatever dominant culture is present.
Yeah.
No, no, but I do believe that I'm a vehicle. I believe that
What
I'm
would you say you're a vehicle? That's very interesting because I could reword that because I know when people hear that, but go ahead.
yeah, I mean, maybe just if you were asking me and I wasn't gonna cringe at anything, then the question would just not include that last bit, just or you're a vehicle, right?
Or you're a vehicle. Yeah.
So
No,
yeah, I'm
go
like a
ahead.
telephone, like a telephone, right? Or
Yeah.
like a transmission ring, or a portal or whatever. Like when I make things, I think of them as my children, right? That are being formed, and I have very little to do with who they are. They might have some of my DNA, but they become full on creatures on their own. And I just happened to birth them through me. And that's it.
Right. Can art making be egoless?
Art making sure can, but art world theatrics cannot.
Wow, that is perception reality.
Ah, no way.
Lewis Carroll says, I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. Have you believed in any impossible things lately?
All day, every day. That's all I do. I don't think I have any sense of reality. Yeah, it's having a grasp on this, on what it actually, no. Yeah, no, no.
Well, you know what Sun Ra said, the impossible attracts me because everything possible has been done and the world didn't change.
True. Also very postmodern, you know?
Okay, tell me, Anna, one major element that's changed and one major element that stayed the same. Let's just say in your creativeness since you started.
Okay. Okay. I mean, the easy thing is to say the major element that has changed is that I'm more focused on one medium than on a ton of others, and my primary medium has changed, right? From primary being painting to primary being film. And while I do work in other media, not, they don't get as much attention as 16 millimeter film specifically.
Yeah.
Um, Something that has stayed the same is the need for abstraction.
Wow. I like that.
Thanks.
Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength rather than we're taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
My first instinct is to say that I love that. And I am constantly working on that, and hoping to learn more, right? And I think the somatic and the movement-based healing is right now, I think it's one of the highest forms of healing. My opinion may change with the more that I learn or new things that I'm introduced to. A weakness that I've transformed into a strength. I don't know, because it's all so subjective, right? Because I might think that it's a strength that I have run-on sentences and I can, go off the cuff. That I've managed to take my propensity for waxing poetical into having some semblance of like transformative, potentially conversation. But I have no idea if anybody else would think that. And in fact, I bet most people are not fans of that, you know?
But I would say spending 90 minutes with you, you do a pretty dang good, man. You pass the test for me. But so you're saying your stream of consciousness or you've it's contributed to your creations.
Yeah, for sure. And like
Oh,
I'm also a blabber. I'm like I can be a non-stopper.
yeah.
But I think that it's how I think and it's how I
Yeah.
process shit. And so yeah, it
No,
definitely.
I like that. I appreciate that. You got anger can be a productive emotion when fill in the blank.
Never.
Wow, here's a perfect example. I used to say, can anger be a productive emotion?
Hmm.
And people go yes or no. And someone says, no, change it to anger can be. So you instinctually went back. I've had that happen. That's just like once.
I mean, it's be I maybe it's because I get angry and I hate myself for it. I haven't managed to turn that into a strength at all. I get fucking angry. I'm hot-blooded and I'm a bitch, you know, I'm a horrible bitch. It comes out of me and I can't control it. I don't know how to control myself. I've never learned after 40 years on this planet. And I can't, something can make me angry and I am affected and I can't, it doesn't pass through me. I can't make it. And it's never fucking productive. Never. And whether I externalize it or I internalize it, I don't have the capability to let it pass through me.
Wow. So how do we keep our governments from going to war? Because I mean, isn't that something angry? I mean, we're angry and you're rooted in you know it deeper than us. So how would you handle that? Because that's like an anger that we have universal right now.
I think that they go to war not because of anger. I think they go to war for strategic reasons and for
Yeah.
political reasons, and they don't care about people.
Yeah.
They care about, I mean, it's back to capitalism and to ownership and to power and all that nasty stuff. But I'm sure that Putin's angry, and I'm sure Zelensky's angry, and I'm sure that the human beings are all angry at each other and themselves and the situation. I sure as fuck am angry. But I don't think it's productive. I don't know. I read a quote the other day. I don't remember from who, but I do remember from who. I see the image. I can't remember her name. It's an actress. She said, it might come to me later. She said, maybe Susan Sarandon, maybe not. Anyway, she said, when women run the world, there will be no war. I don't know if that's true. If I was running any country, I don't know. I don't know. But hopefully women would be able to keep peace a little bit more, because I think the rest of the quote was, because we don't want to see our children die.
Yeah. Yeah, it's heavy because I study Maria Gambudis, who's an anthropologist, who said, hey, there was cultures when there was no war. And they're like, nope, she didn't study anthropology well. And it's like, it goes back to this question. What caused matriarchy?
Oh, you want me to answer that?
Yeah.
Oh God, I don't know. That's actually one that I have to that I have to answer as I don't know.
Yeah.
What caused matriarchy?
Well, it could be biology, that women give birth. And then they said, well, if they're giving birth, then they should run. And then one guy said, there never was matriarchy that we think there was. But, I mean, he didn't say never, but, it was just how anthropologists study it,
Yeah.
It's just
I mean,
like,
but what caused patriarchy?
well,
They
that's
said that dudes should run the world, but like, who are the they that said the chicks should run the world because they give birth? Like, what are the they? Who the fuck's in charge to be the they?
Who is the they? Well, that's perfect lead into Utah Phillips said, anarchy is making rules for yourself and not other people. Who's entitled to make the rules?
Awesome. Awesome. Really, absolutely fucking awesome. So when I teach film, my students often, sometimes, whatever, 80% of the time, joke. They say, I'm doing this and this because that's the rule. And I'm like, who made that rule? Who was it? Who was it? Tell me who it was. Who said that this convention is a fucking convention? And they're like, Bob or whoever the fuck,
Right.
Okay, cool. What species is Eisenstein? Oh, he's a human. Oh, that's fucking weird. What about you? What are you? Oh, you're a human. Whoa, man. Make rules. Like,
I got to go back and compliment you when you went joke. Gary, wake up. Yeah, my weakness is I'm a little slow. I can appear to be semi-intellectual and read off fancy names. You know, all you got to do in Ann Arbor is say Wittgenstein, or you just got to drop a couple of these.
Or Benjamin.
Oh, Benjamin. That's the other. I always forget. All you got to say is Benjamin or Wittgenstein.
You could also say McLuhan. That's useful too.
Well, well, that's funny because because I was going to bring it up in my workshop next Thursday. There, it is one guy said to me, McLuhan's dead, because all I do is go McLuhan, and he goes, McLuhan's dead, and I goes, well, optical printers are old too, they're dead. And that's how he made all his films. So it's like, I know, I tend to drop his name because I want people to understand him and not misunderstand him. He's largely misunderstood, and that's okay because what's his name? Marshall said, a half a truth is still a lot of a truth. Because Woody Allen made him known by flipping. His whole sensibility was asking questions. So the key line in that quickie exchange in Annie Hall, Marshall goes, you mean my whole fallacy is wrong, as a statement. And Marshall would never say it as a statement. He would go, do you mean my whole fallacy is wrong, as a question. So it was funny because Woody's first choice was Fellini and Buñuel, and he couldn't get him, so he got Marshall.
Oh, ouch.
Ouch. Which perfectly leads into a Buñuel. There's a line that goes, you create what you resist. Or Bob Goldthwait, comedian, says, you are what you hate. And James Joyce says, it's a curious thing how your mind is super saturated with the religion in which you say you disbelieve. But Buñuel nailed it. He said, thank God I'm an atheist. So what is your take on this, Anna? You create what you resist, not meaning you, but one creates what one resists. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. I think this goes back to the enemy question too. And the acknowledging and giving it power, right? So the more you resist, the more the thing becomes alive. And, we can talk about hundreds of other theories in this world that humans have come up with or have recognized or whatever. And we can say, well, if I keep talking about the war in Ukraine or the invasion of Ukraine or the genocide of Ukraine, then it's going to continue to happen because I'm giving it power. If I talk about wanting peace in Ukraine and not say the other words, then it is more likely that I give power to peace. So it's more likely for peace to come. So the thing that I would say about resisting is, also resisting takes a lot of energy. So does anger. So if you can avoid it, and if I can avoid it, we should avoid resisting, because what the fuck? It's doing no good. Same with worry. It does nothing for us. Nothing.
Yeah. How do you find peace of mind?
Swimming.
Oh my. And what was the second one?
Making
and swimming. Wow. I had a guy say swimming the other week, and that is so good. That's what kept my mother alive for many, many years. She had like a bum leg, hip, and she just swam every day. Swimming is good.
It's the best.
If you're walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
Yeah, I would say don't listen to anybody who makes your dreams small.
Wow. Which way should toilet paper come off the roll? Over or under?
Under. Hardcore.
Why?
Hardcore.
Why?
Oh man, it's so much easier to get it off the roll.
Now that's Now that's 95% say over.
Really? 95% say over?
Sorry.
Why? Because they see no, not sorry. I don't mind being an odd duck, but because they see it? What do they get? What's the reason?
Well, the funniest is the patent, which is about 110 years have it going over. But most people say over because it's easier, blah, blah. But last week, this woman, she invented that. She's a great lady. She invented the word super PAC. She's a highbrow journalist in DC. She says, oh, it's under. Everybody knows that. It's etiquette. It's in the etiquette books. And I couldn't challenge her. I was like, no. I mean, it could be in the etiquette books, but it's just, I mean, it's funny because sometimes I do these in front of people, and years ago, like in a coffee house, and there's 40 people there. And all the audience loves when I ask that because they go, finally, a question I can relate to.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
So while I really firmly, really fucking firmly, if I was a politician, I would run on this. Firmly believe that it's under. I am a person that generally doesn't put it on the thingy. I put it on the sink so that I can pick it up, pull it off, put it back.
Yeah, right. Oh no, I've had people go, it doesn't matter. They get pissed at me for asking that question, and they go, it doesn't matter, and I don't care. And
Oh, it fucking matters. It fucking matters. If I'm in a house, if I'm in somebody else's home, and a new role has just been placed and it's over, I switch it.
Right. No, I do too.
Are you under or over?
I'm over, sorry. Yeah.
Well, since we're in somebody else's home together, we would take turns going to the bathroom. Cool.
If a publisher was to release your autobiography, off the top of your head, what would the title be?
Maybe that. The Adventures of Anna Kipervaser.
Oh, that is cool. They want to scent the glue in the binding. What smell?
They want to what?
Scent the glue in the binding of your autobiography.
What smell? Woo! That's good. Oh my God. The way a cat's belly smells.
Oh, that is sweet. They want to have a color of ink other than black for some of the pages. What color?
Man, it depends on why. It really depends on why. I don't know. Blue, red, green, but black I really like.
Good. That's good. I like that. I just added the color part recently, and it's fun because people they think because I ask a question that they have to answer it. And I like that you go, well, it depends.
Yeah.
If a statue was built in your honor, where would you want it displayed and what would it be made of?
Whew. Man, it'd be cool to be a hologram. Where the fuck would it be displayed? It would be cool to be displayed next to a theater, next to a film house.
How cool. Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
Something I never had and never want. Chlamydia.
What is chlamydia?
It's a sexually transmitted disease.
Oh, but it's not good, is it?
No, I never had it. I never want.
But it's good. The thing's got to be good.
I was trying to make a joke. Okay. Something that I never had.
An STD.
Oh, I got it.
Go ahead.
I was buying myself time. Sorry, Jerry. Most people think it's good, but I don't. So I don't know if this counts because you might tell me no, it doesn't count. A family like
that's a very legitimate child. Mike, you know the artist Mike Kelly? He said kids. Yeah. No, same. A family. Yeah. And another woman last week said a spouse.
Yeah.
So yeah. No, that's if you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
I probably already have killed myself before that happened, and I'd probably be puking before the bag of shit hit my face, so I don't think it would matter.
Thank you for not hating me. This guy, a couple days ago, as soon as I got urine and bad vomit, he says, "Stop right there." I refused to answer it. He wouldn't even let me finish. And to tell you the truth, I have to be a little easy on that question because you can sense who some people would hate. But
Of course.
it's like the guy I met I learned it from. It's like a metaphor for life in a way, you know. It could be, you know.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. You
This has
can't.
been too much fun. I don't want it to end. Oh, okay. Yeah, I know. These are 5 Alan Watts questions just off the top of your head in a few words. Who started it all?
Mm, man. I can have fun, right? I'm just gonna have fun. Bob Dylan.
Oh, I love that answer. Are we going to make it?
Fuck no, we're not. We already didn't.
Where do we put it?
Well, if you're asking me, there's a couple choices.
Go ahead. What
No,
are they?
that's it. That's the
Oh,
answer.
who's cleaning it up?
Probably me.
Is it serious?
Probably not.
Wow. Now you're heavy into Bob Dylan or
No, I love
yeah,
him, but I'm not
you
heavy
love
into
him,
him.
but yeah,
Yeah,
heavy into yeah.
yeah.
Because you know, I tell you just a couple quick Dylan things is one is never tell anyone everything you know. That's he learned that from the Bible. And I love that because if we met in Ann Arbor at the festival and we started talking,
Mhm.
you know, your enthusiasm, I would tell you everything I know about everything.
Same,
And
same.
it's like and it's like then I always go, "Oh my God, I think I told everything I know."
But
I
same
love
same here, and, like, I think that's I don't like it when people tell me not to do something in that vein, and if
yeah,
Bob said that to me, even though it's Bob,
yeah,
I I would still, like, feel small because I was being told not to be myself, and I don't
yeah,
like that. I just wanna be free. So, like,
yep,
if we met at Ann Arbor or in somebody's
yeah.
house in a bathroom when we were switching out the toilet paper, um, and we wanted to tell each other everything we knew, that'd be
Yeah.
fucking great. It would be a blast. What's the problem?
Well, we have almost in 2 hours, we've told a lot. So Joseph Boyce said, "Make the secrets productive." And Thornton Wilder said, "Art is confession. Art is the secret told." But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. You've laid your cards on the table for over 2 hours. I'm not insinuating you haven't answered this, but what's it really all about for you?
First, I'm gonna say that I agree 100% that art can, I don't know if it's always or every work of art is, but I think art can be the keeper of secrets. It is
Yeah,
the vessel into which we can put the things that cannot be said and that then can only be transmitted as much as they can be received, right?
yeah,
And so, for me, I know for some people, it's making work is not about, but it's a way to feel better or
yeah,
to get through things. I've definitely made things when I've been going through stuff or when I've gotten better, but I've also made things that are very cerebral questions
yeah,
and that are so it's what it's all about for me. It depends on each project and depends on the moment and whatever the fuck I need, right? And whatever I feel the thing needs. So, like, again, I might start a project with an idea that I'm working through or with a concept or with a feeling that I'm working through, but then the thing comes to life and becomes its own thing. The process decides. I have very little to do with it. I'm just a skilled laborer, somewhat skilled. And I think that's it. Yeah. Yeah.
But what does courage mean to you now?
To not fucking give up, to just keep going.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Well, that's one of my heroes, Frank Zappa, says, don't stop and keep going. That's it. I want to, before we end, I want to go into this little thing because it really intrigues me and I can't figure it out. And I think it's about Nina Menken's new movie called Brainwashed.
No, tell me.
So she made a documentary on female gaze. So, Laura brought it up in the 70s. This woman said that, so I started exploring it. Where did what caused human gaze? Is gaze, is eye contact more innate or more invented? And so you get to this point where, males have dominated photography, film, and painting, but not necessarily making, but the ones that got in the art museums, and get taught. And
Yeah.
she sort of said, hey, what female can frame things differently. Actually, you can blend this too. One of my questions is, where did you get your framing aesthetic? But just to finish on the female gaze, so she's really delved it deep into how all the major filmmakers frame stuff, and that's the male gaze. Then there's this woman, and I don't know if she talks about her, but Alice Blanche, I think her name is. She was like, do you know this woman? She was like one of the inventors of cinema 120 years ago. Cinema is basically 130 years old. She's like there inventing storyboarding and everything. And there's a doc on her now, and she got washed out of the. So did she have the female gaze? Well, maybe she had the same sense of getting her framing, if that's what gaze is. It's not just framing, but from the painters and the photographers before her who were mainly male. So then she comes along and says, well, I'm going to do this. So who knows? I mean, I haven't seen it yet, but I'm really interested in just your feeling on what affected your framing aesthetic, and then even delve into, is there a difference between a male and a female gaze?
So my answer here is a little radical. And this is, I guess, a trigger warning. And I also want to say before I answer this, that once you're done asking me questions, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Good. So I'll start with the radical, and then I don't know what I'll start with, actually. So obviously, as a refugee, underprivileged, historically oppressed, and female person, who comes from a family of Holocaust survivors, I definitely feel discriminated against, and I feel underrepresented, and I feel blah, blah, blah. All the things that are real. And I just said blah, 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 because I know that everybody knows, right? We all, I feel, I have felt ostracized. My grandma, on the other hand, my mom's mom, who's alive and well and is incredible, a fucking goddess. She's always positive. She says, a quote from her that I like to use is, the more languages you know, or as many languages as you know, is as many times as you are a human being. And that's actually an Engels quote, but she has been the one to transmit it to me. And she just doesn't just mean spoken, written languages. She means, languages. ways of being, ways of working, etc. She's like, Anna, sure, we're oppressed, but also, we should just be grateful for being alive. We should be grateful for having made it to this country. We should be grateful for not being shelled. We should be grateful for having food on the table. And that's all true, all of those things. When I walk into a room and I am the only woman, I am definitely spoken over. I am definitely looked at as less than. And however, here comes the radical part. I don't think there's that much difference between men and women fundamentally.
Yeah.
I think that men have gotten this thing trained inside of them from generations of being the ones in power where they have to look down at women. But in real life, I don't think there's that much difference. So it's
Yeah.
just about re-educating. And about the gaze, like the concept of the male gaze. Yeah, it's there. But also, what about the gay male gaze? What about the non-cis
Yeah.
male gaze? What about the gay female gaze? What about all the other iterations of gaze based on sex and gender and sexual preference and worldview? It's not just about what organs I was fucking born with. And so I don't, I don't, I don't know how to reconcile all of the things I just said. I just know that they're all present. And when I started shooting that feature doc, which is what I started shooting, I was told by people who were looking at the footage that, like, oh, Anna, you shoot like a painter. You don't shoot like a documentary filmmaker. You gotta learn how to shoot like a documentary filmmaker. And I think I learned how to do that. And I didn't like it, but I definitely kept shooting like a painter. And I learned the difference between the two through the making of that film. I can't say if it was influenced by men directly, but I'm sure it was based on the world that I have lived in, which is a patriarchy
Yeah.
and is a male dominated art world and Anglo-Saxon also.
Yeah. Because both Tarkovsky and Greenaway, I would say, for me, helped me realize you could still frame any shot, and it's like a painting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And you can let light do things that whew,
Yeah.
change the way we think of as a photograph or photographic moving image or reality or what the fuck ever. Light.
Do you think you got your framing aesthetic for film from painting?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think there's any other choice. I think that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I asked Bruce Bailey that years ago in Ann Arbor, and he says, well, I'll go to Jean Cocteau. He says, where'd you get your framing aesthetic? He says, the way you put the silverware on the dinner table.
Huh.
Isn't that amazing? Like that's so you wonder, like Robert Frank comes along, what country is Robert Frank come? And he goes, like this. But let me tell you, I dropped the question. What's the most significant difference between men and women, physical aside? Because people now are they go, well, I don't know. And it's just too awkward of a question to ask now. I do ask what caused matriarchy a little once in a while, but when anyone and the general answer was always women are emotional, men hold it in, women are intuitive, men are linear. And every once in a while I'd get that answer. There's no difference, basically. And I love to hear that because there are people who see that, as a bigger picture because it's become we become more just divisive or polar or all that.
Yeah, and I don't know, like most, and maybe this is also a product of being a tomboy when I was a kid and having most of my friends be men and boys, and that continuing to be the case and feeling more comfortable with men. Maybe it's my own psychology, maybe it's my own physiology. I feel, and some of the most emotional people I know are men. So I don't know. I don't think that there's so much.
Yeah. No, it's good. Okay, I have two more questions. You want to ask yours now or at the end?
At the end.
What
If
is,
I can.
yeah, of course. What is the cultural shift you see developing today that inspires you?
Jerry, that's really tough because I've been really, like, you asked me what I worry about at night, and I said Georgie, the kitty, and that's 100% true. Um, but in the last 3 weeks, the thing I worry about is my country.
Yeah.
And that's 24/7, and I was in a state of total unrest and distress, and I couldn't feel my body. I was not grounded at all, and I didn't even know it until I went to see my incredible massage therapist for an appointment we had scheduled months ago. And I showed up and she was like, what hurts? And I was like, I don't know. I actually don't know because I'm fucking embroiled in this. So what do I see that's happening that's inspiring to me? Right now I don't fucking see shit.
Yeah.
And maybe like a month ago, I might have answered differently, but I've been in a really dark place since, maybe even since before COVID hit, but definitely since COVID. Um, I know that I felt more things were possible before COVID hit. Um, yeah. So I don't, I, I felt that I felt more like my dreams were possible, and not just to come true, but that my dreams were possible.
Yeah.
And now, especially with, I maybe was coming out of feeling like that wasn't the case, and then the Ukraine thing happened, and I don't see anything, no cultural shift. All I see is devastation.
Yeah. I feel for you, and it touches us all, and it's something that um, someone said on the radio the other day. We live in the 21st century. Why is this happening?
Exactly.
How can this? I mean, let alone to go, okay, 2 years of COVID now, clip, COVID's done. Now we have this. And it's like, are they just feeding us hopelessness to keep us attracted? Or this is, no, this is real. And why? And, then yeah. So
Yep.
I really appreciate you telling me this and laying your cards on the table. Last question is just the opposite. What gives you the most optimism?
My grandma would say waking up every morning.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. I would say mm, seeing a really good work of art, and
Good.
believing in something.
Yeah.
Yeah, believing things are possible. Having ideas.
Yep.
No, we get ideas.
This has really been fun. And, Bill Brown, I interviewed him many years ago. I want to interview him again. And, the normal time is 90 minutes and he went 2.5 hours. So you're almost at the Bill Brown record.
Oh, I love Bill Brown. Bill and Sabine run Cosmic Rays, and that's happening in like 11 days. I mean, the digital version's happening now, but the in-person film festival part is happening in
How
11
cool.
days.
How
Yeah.
many, how long does it last?
It lasts that weekend. It's super
Oh, for
cool.
like 3 days?
Yeah. But then,
Yeah.
but they have this other section, which is mostly AR and VR, and that's in a gallery at Peel. But yeah, it's really super cool. So I get to see them both in 11 days. I'm honored to be almost at the Bill Brown mark.
It's so cool that Sabine connected us, and we give
Yeah,
her big shouts of praise.
yeah, she's rad. They're
That
both
was super nice. Yeah.
yeah, I appreciate it.
I've
So,
had them here in Santa Monica at a coffee house showing their films before
oh
years
fuck
ago.
yeah. So
Yeah.
you're in Santa Monica. That's great.
I'm in Venice, but
Okay,
one of the places I showed at was in Santa Monica. Yeah.
sweet. That's rad. Yeah, they do touring, which is rad. Me and a colleague friend of mine, Alex Cunningham, went on a tour showing our films in 2016. I was thinking about that tour today while swimming. I try not to think while swimming, but sometimes thoughts will enter and I try to make them go away. Swimming's like meditating. So optical printing is like meditating also. It's great.
It's good.
So fucking good.
Okay, hit me with your best shot. What are you going to ask me?
All right. So Jerry, this isn't my best shot. It's just a question I'm curious about. So you've been doing this a long time. This,
About 40 years.
yeah, I read that. You've been doing this a long time and you do it multiple times a week.
Now with Zoom, yes.
Yeah. And before, when it was in person, how many times a week?
Oh, it would just happen when, if I was in your town or you were in my town. So it became so easy.
Yeah.
And there were so many people that I wanted to interview over the years. So it's just, yeah. So it's increased time wise. I mean, it's a time investment, but I found it to be very enjoyable and I learn a lot. That's the
Yeah.
main thing.
So I guess the big question is, now that I know the setup, the big question is, how do you have, like, why do you do it? How do you have the energy for it? And like, what happens for you? I mean, you just said you learn from it, but
Yeah.
what happens for you through this process? It's just something I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's mainly I do it to learn. So I like the question, I don't know what I think until McLuhan would say it. And Joan Didion says, I don't know what I think until I write it.
Mhm.
And then I'm going to send you a copy of my book. It's a PDF. It's got some of these interviews with experimental filmmakers. And I say it in the intro there. That will suss out a better answer for your question is, I don't know what I think until I ask somebody else what they think,
Hell yeah.
So it's like I at this point, I answer all I've been interviewed with my own questions, which I've collected from all these people. This woman interviewed people in LA for years, Christine McKenna. And then, Scott McDonald, he's got like 5 books of interviews with filmmakers. So I've studied all them, and it's like you have a chance to share time with someone. And it's not important to me whether they're like an accomplished this or that. If they're willing to talk for 90 minutes, I'm willing to ask them. And so it's really challenging when someone doesn't cooperate. This poet once said, I don't know. What do you think? Like every question. I don't know.
Whoa.
And eventually he broke down a little and answered some of them, and it was fine. And those are the ones that really challenge me. But someone like you get it, and we have fun, and it's
Yeah.
like playing ping pong, or it's like, then you get, so the real reason is to go deeper than the stock lines that
Yeah.
people get. And some people like won't go there, and that's fine. And some people will right off the bat. That's why, why I picked 90 minutes, because that's how long an audio cassette was.
Oh, nice.
That's what's
Nice.
determinant. A C, not a 90. And so some people are like, I don't know if I can go for 90 minutes. I goes, okay, well, let's just try. And if you're like guy 2 weeks ago, as chemo, and he's weak, and he just said after an hour, I got it. That's enough. And so I just had to wrap it up. And then the guy last night said, we got through 12 questions in 90 minutes. And I said, usually I get through 30 to 40. Can we do part two? And he goes, okay. And then I stretched it to 2 hours, and I'm hoping he'll do a part two. But another guy this year we did two parts because it was just fun. I mean,
Yeah.
we could have done, I mean, we can do another part, but it's really just like you meet someone at a party and you talk to them and you have
And you
fun
hang out.
and
Yeah.
you hang out. But it's like I do have the upper hand, and I know that because I shoot in the questions. But I like when it gets conversational, and then I can go, oh, that reminds me of this and that. And
Yeah.
so, it's and I'll tell you the podcast, like the guy I do this one with, Rob, and it's just a delight because I don't have to worry about hitting a button and watching the machine work properly. I mean, all this tech stuff you have to do with your Bolex, like you were talking about. And I have this huge archive of interviews I did on audio cassettes, and the quality on some of them is not great. And I would do visual looking to make sure the thing was turning. And one time I automatically looked and I really thought, oh, it's turning, and it wasn't. So there were a couple of times I messed up. I mean, overall, I've gotten there haven't been that many mess ups, but it's like with this, I see the little live red thing. We're on live TV right now. It is amazing phenomenon. We knew it live TV in New York in the 50s. You had to have these big clunky TV and Elia Kazan directing it. It's so easy. And I like when Rob jumps on, because he's has a kid now and he's busy, but he'll jump on and says, well, I'll say let him, because that's good when somebody throws in something else.
For sure.
And when I did them at coffee houses, like if you were here, I could show your films at one of our venues and interview you in front of an audience. And then after I interview you, then people ask questions that I wouldn't think of. So,
Yeah.
it's an endless thing. And it's also the chat. I saw, I'm really intrigued if you haven't seen it, the Andy Warhol Diaries. Have you watched that?
No. Tell me
It's
more.
it's 6 hours of a new Andy Warhol doc.
Great.
And I've watched all the docs on Andy for years, and I thought I know a lot, and this is really well done. But then I started watching these little tutorials on YouTube about Andy Warhol, and I thought, well, maybe I'll just take a peek at this one. And then it showed an interview of Andy Warhol with Edie Sedgwick on Merv Griffin from way back, and it's black and white. And she comes out all friendly and she goes, Andy won't talk. He'll whisper the answers in my ear. And it's really amazing because he eventually breaks down. He goes, no, yes. And and you know what? I was trained by people like I watched Mike Douglas with my mom, Merv Griffin, Johnny Carson, Dick Cavett. These guys are just chat, and they're good at it, and it's just chatting. And then, Christine McKenna, like I said, she was interviewing Herzog and Captain Beefheart and David Lynch in LA. And I would love her question is my main question is the oldest question is what's more important, conviction or compromise? And I'll tell you one of my favorite answers. It took 25 years. Guy goes, depends on what you mean by important.
Oh,
So
nice.
they totally shifted the emphasis
Uh-huh.
of conviction and compromise to another word. And so and I've interviewed her twice with a lot of her own questions that I got from her. So I just collected the questions.
Oh, that's
And
fun.
one of my favorite ever was this woman in Ann Arbor. She goes, is that a real question? It was some question I asked, and she goes, is that a real question? I goes, no, it's a genuine fake one. But it's really just fun way to have fun. And,
Yeah.
so,
That's
I really appreciate it because I could tell by your enthusiasm, but just how you wrote your emails. like you were into,
Oh, fuck yeah. Fuck yeah.
And Sabine was into it too. She got it,
Yeah,
and
for
it
sure.
was like, that's what, and then I'll send you a thank you and I'll say, suggest anyone else. And they don't have to be, they can just be a normal person who's, I do these reading clubs with people in Dublin in Italy because of Zoom. And these women in Italy, they're English teachers and they're like, know how to drop all literature. Like, well, Wordsworth says this, and, Dante says this. And I like that. And then I interview them and they're just like, why do you want to interview me? I says, because you want to talk,
Yeah.
So that's
No, it's awesome.
basically, yeah.
It's super awesome. I think when I was younger, when I was a kid, I was an extrovert. And kid, I think I go from 0 until like maybe 25.
Yeah.
Maybe 25. And I was a hardcore extrovert. And when I was in college, one of my projects, I think second year, was I created a survey about synchronicity.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
And the survey was asking, I mean, it wasn't a survey, it was going around asking people the same questions, right? And I
Yeah.
spent like a month going around asking people the same questions. And based on their answers, which none of them were yes or no questions.
Good.
And based on the questions, I created a map, a color-coded map.
Yeah.
And it was wild. And the most fun part was obviously hanging out with the people. And
Yeah, that's it.
yeah,
Totally.
yeah. So I totally, I get it. I just always
Yeah.
curious, always curious.
Well, the two things of synchronicity I love are, Frank Zappa said, conceptual continuity. Like there's a fine line running through all his stuff. And that's, you can do that, with auteur theory and film or whatever. You find this pattern recognition, comprehensive awareness, big picture. But McLuhan called it complex clairvoyance.
Ooh.
So you can recognize things. Like if you read, the one thing I didn't bring up, which I would highly recommend, is read a page of Finnegan's Wake out loud with a group of people. And then you don't have to talk about it, just read it out loud. And it has amazing things because it's the history of everything that ever happened or ever will happen. He basically sat in Paris in the 20s and listened to shortwave radio and wrote it all down. So he invented everything that's ever going to happen and disguised it as a book,
Yep.
So it's fun and it's got that you could go, hey, that just happened to me today, because it's 65 languages in one book, but it's amazing. And that was one of the highlights of my time in Ann Arbor was Bill Brown. I did a lecture on experimental film in Finnegan's Wake, and Bill Brown read a half a page of Finnegan's Wake out loud in front of the audience.
Meow, meow. And Bill Brown speaking and reading is such a joy.
Oh, he is. He is the ultimate nomadic filmmaker.
He's such a joy. He's such a joy. Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. I like complex clairvoyance. I'm very interested.
That is cool, isn't it? Yeah.
Great term for it.
Anyways, what a pleasure. Thank you so much, Anna.
Thank you so much, Jerry. You rock.
Beyond, believe me. And let's keep the conversation going on. Ever want to talk again, just we will do it again, and it can be themed or just free for all.
Hell yeah, Jerry. You rock.
All right.
You're my idol. Party on.
Thanks again. So bye, Anna.
Bye.
I'm gonna hit this little red button, but I don't want it.